One afternoon, Stella, who was Vera's younger sister, had a plan. She went to Vera's house, where Vera and her 6-month-old baby, Junior, were watching TV in the sitting room. The house was empty, as all the neighbors were out that day. Stella looked at Junior, the innocent baby, and thought to herself, "Nobody will save you today, Junior." She smiled wickedly as she thought about her evil plan. But Vera had no idea what Stella was planning. Mrs. Vera was happy to see her sister and shouted, "Stella!" with joy when she opened the door. She gave her a tight hug and then turned to Junior, who was lying on the sofa. "Junior, look, your auntie is here," she said, laughing and smiling at her baby. Junior, who was still a baby, smiled back and kicked his tiny legs in excitement. Little did Vera know, her sister Stella was not here to share love or kindness. Instead, Stella came with a bad plan, a plan that would hurt Vera badly. "I cooked soup today, Stella," Vera said kindly, offering her sister food. "Do you want some?" But Stella didn't answer. Instead, she went straight to the baby. "I came to see my sister's son," Stella said with a fake sweet smile. "I just came to see Junior." Stella carefully picked Junior up and rocked him in her arms, smiling as she played with his soft fingers. Vera was happy. "Thank God you came," she said. "I was wondering how I would go to the market with Junior. Now that you're here, I can go easily. But please, don't let him go to the balcony, okay?" Stella smiled and nodded. "Don't worry, I'll take good care of Junior. You can go and take your time," she said softly. Vera felt relaxed and quickly went into her room to change. She was humming happily as she put on her slippers and got ready to leave. But just as she was about to step out, Junior suddenly started crying. He kicked his little legs and cried loudly, as if begging his mum not to leave him. Vera gently touched his soft cheeks. "Shh, it's okay, my love. Stay with Auntie. Mummy will be back soon," she said, trying to comfort him. Then she turned to Stella. "If he cries too much, please call me," she said with concern. Stella nodded, her smile still on her face. "I will," she promised. As soon as Vera left the house, Stella's smile quickly turned into a wicked grin. Her eyes became cold as she stared at Junior, still crying on the sofa. Stella didn't care at all about Junior's cries. Without warning, she roughly dropped Junior onto the floor. His small head hit the hard-tiled floor, and he cried even louder. But Stella didn't care. She didn't even look back as she locked the door and walked downstairs. She walked around the compound, making sure no one was around. She even knocked on some of the neighbors' doors, pretending to greet them, just to make sure no one would hear Junior's cries. When she was satisfied that the coast was clear, she quickly went outside and bought a sweet. Stella smiled wickedly as she climbed back upstairs, her plans moving forward. When she entered the house, Junior was still lying on the floor, crying helplessly. His tiny hands were shaking as he tried to reach for something to hold on to. Stella stood over him coldly. "Today, I will teach your mother a lesson she will never forget," she whispered to herself. She took out the sweet and showed it to Junior. The baby stopped crying for a moment, his innocent eyes lighting up at the sight of the treat. He stretched out his tiny hands, trying to grab the sweet. Stella laughed out loud, enjoying the sight of the baby's innocence. "Not so easy, my dear nephew. If you want this sweet, you'll have to play a little game first," she said with a cruel laugh. The baby, still smiling, didn't understand what was happening. He just reached out for the sweet. Stella lifted Junior up and carried him to the balcony. The house was a 3-story building, and they lived on the highest floor. Stella placed Junior on a chair near the rails. Junior looked down curiously, peeking over the balcony, not understanding the danger. "Jump, Junior," Stella said with an evil grin. "Jump and I'll give you the sweet. Jump and you'll see Mommy." Junior looked down, still not understanding, but he smiled faintly. When Stella saw that he wasn't jumping, she gave him a hard push. The next sound was complete silence. Junior's small body fell from the 3rd floor straight to the ground below. There was no cry, no scream, only the sound of his tiny body hitting the ground. Stella looked down from the balcony, a wicked smile on her face. But she wasn't satisfied yet. She picked up a large stone from the floor and threw it down at Junior's lifeless body. She wanted to make sure he didn't survive. Junior remained motionless on the ground. Blood slowly ran from his nose. He was still. Satisfied with what she had done, Stella rushed out of the house and went straight to her own apartment. She cleaned her hands and picked up her phone. Then she made a call to Vera's husband, Patrick. "Brother-in-law, please hurry home," she said, pretending to be shocked and upset. "A neighbor just called me and said your wife left Junior alone and he fell from the balcony." Patrick froze on the other end of the line. "What?" he shouted in disbelief. No, it can't be." His heart raced. His only son. The child he and Vera had waited 10 years for. He rushed home immediately while Stella smiled cruelly to herself. "Let's see how you defend yourself now, dear sister Vera," she whispered. Stella then called Vera, pretending to cry. "Vera, please come home. Junior fell from the balcony," she said, sounding worried and upset. "What?" Vera screamed. "No, Stella, please tell me you're joking." She was already crying as she ran out of the market. When Patrick arrived home, he saw his son lying on the ground, lifeless. He fell to his knees, crying uncontrollably. "Vera, why? Why would you leave our baby alone?" he shouted. Vera, still in shock, shook her head. "No, I left him with my sister. Please believe me. Let's take him to the hospital," she cried. But Patrick wouldn't listen. "Don't touch my son. You're lying. Stella said she wasn't here. You want to blame her for your carelessness." "No, please listen to me," Vera cried louder, desperate. "I can never hurt my child." Just then, Stella arrived, pretending to cry. "Sister, how could you?" she said, shaking her head sadly. "Why did you leave the baby alone and go to the market?" The neighbors began to murmur, all blaming Vera for what had happened. She looked at her sister with tears in her eyes. "Stella, why would you betray your own sister like this?" she whispered. But Stella only looked away, pretending to wipe her tears. Patrick shouted, "Police, arrest her for negligence." As the police dragged Vera away, she screamed, "Stella, why are you doing this to me?" Stella stood beside Patrick, hiding a wicked smile as they entered the car with Junior. Vera was crying uncontrollably as the police officers dragged her to the police cell. She couldn't believe what was happening. "I didn't do this. I didn't leave my baby alone," she cried out to anyone who would listen. But the police didn't seem to care. They just pushed her into the cold, dark cell and slammed the door behind her. Meanwhile, Patrick, still in shock, was rushing Junior to the hospital. He kept thinking about what he had just seen. The lifeless body of his son lying on the ground, blood slowly running from his tiny nose. He couldn't understand how this could have happened. How could Vera, his wife, leave their baby alone like this? As Patrick stood in the hospital, staring at his son in the ICU, his heart sank. The doctors were doing everything they could to save Junior. But things didn't look good. The doctors were worried about his injuries and the blood loss. Patrick didn't know what to think. He couldn't stop blaming Vera for what had happened, even though deep down he knew something was wrong. Stella, however, wasn't worried at all. She was sitting comfortably at her apartment, smiling wickedly to herself. She had carried out her plan perfectly. Now, all she had to do was make sure Vera stayed in prison and Junior didn't survive. Then everything would be hers. She quickly took out her phone and dialed a number.